All right, so with this setup, let us look at the questions and hopefully most of them won't be too difficult. There may be a few tricky ones in there somewhere. Let's get started. Number one says, if G is played second, which one of the following tapes must be played third? So if G is second, who has to be third? Uh, and this might require us to draw it out. So let's just go ahead and do it here. On the actual test, or when you're practicing actually, you should do it on a new diagram. You shouldn't write on your main diagram. I'm going to go ahead and write on my main diagram because um, I can undo it really easily, and it's easier than having to drop a whole new setup. So they said the G is in 2. That means, of course, that the P is going to be in 5, and they want to know who's going to have to be second. Okay, so let's think about it. The only other rule we really have besides the G and the P is this LO block and the fact that it has to come before the N. So let's, this is the block, and the good thing about blocks is they kind of visually represent the information. You don't really have to think about it. You can just kind of look at it. And you can see that this block of 2 will either fit here in 3 or 4, or it'll fit here in 6 or 7. But the thing is that we can't put it in 6 or 7 because of these not laws. And the reason we came up with these not laws is because of this N, right? If we tried to put the block here, LO, then where would the N go? So what we know already is that the block, in fact, has to go here, okay? So their original question was, who has to be played third? And that's easy. The answer is L. Uh, so not a lot of complication in this setup. This question. The only thing that some people make a mistake on is they think that they can put the block in 6 or 7. They might be especially prone to make that mistake if they didn't do the not laws ahead of time. All right. So let's look at number 2. It says the news tape can be played in any of the following time slots except. So when we want to know where the news tape cannot be played, we can just look at our diagram and look for the not laws for the news tape. Okay, so we know that it can't be played in 1 or 2. So hopefully they give us one of these 2 as the answer. We can pick it and move to the next question. And it says answer choice A says second. So that's the right answer. The news tape cannot be played second. And as a reminder of where we got this not law from, it came from this rule right here, which is that L and O both have to come before the N. Okay? Uh, that was an easy question, and as you may have heard already, the second question on most games is relatively straightforward. A lot of times it comes directly from the not laws. All right, let's go to number 3. If H and S are to be scheduled as far apart from each other as possible, then the first, the second, and the third time slots could be filled respectively by. All right, so this question requires a little bit more thinking on our part. H and S, it says, are to be scheduled as far apart as possible. H and S. So the prompt tells you keep these guys as far apart as you can. Well, looking at the board, we see that obviously if we want to keep them as far apart as possible, we could put one of them here in 1, and then we could put the other one, whichever one we didn't put in 1, we can put in the back. And when we consider H and S, there aren't really any rules about H and S. So that means that, we really don't know which one is going to go first or which one is going to go seventh. And their placement in 1 and 7 doesn't directly affect the placement of anyone else. It only affects the placement insofar as it takes up those spaces, and therefore all the other variables have to go in the spaces 2 through 6, which are left. Okay, so the question is, they say, then, so that was the prompt. So far, it looks like we fulfilled the prompt. We kept H and S as far apart as possible. We're saying they're going to be in 1 and 7. The question then says, then the first, second, and third time slots could be filled respectively by. Okay, um, and there are a few different ways this could go. Immediately, once we take up 1 and 7, we should be thinking about where the GP block is going to go, right? Because we've sort of taken away 2 of the spaces, and the block is pretty wide to begin with, so there's got to be only a couple ways it could go. And if we look at it, That's correct, right? We could put the GP here, in which case the other one would be here, so 2 and 5. Uh, or we could put 3 and 6. Or could we? So those are the two possibilities, all right? Um, let's draw them out here. Just to be clear, one of them would go, here, I'm gonna do it like this. I'm just gonna do it right above, and again, make the point that you, on this point at least, you should do as I say and not as I do. You can just draw it again, okay? Don't just use your pencil, it's no big deal. The extra time that it takes, if it takes a few extra seconds, is well worth it in terms of keeping things clean and clear on your diagram. But what we said was we could put one of them here probably, right? GP, and in that case the other one would be here. And in that case, how would we fill that out? Well, we still have the LO block to take care of, and the only two spaces that are adjacent to each other and still open would be 3 and 4, so they would have to go there, and then the N could go here, okay? But the other possibility that I was considering at first, but now it looks like it's not, but now we can see it's not going to work, is this, all right? What if I put the GP here, and now what am I going to do with the LO block? Well, these are the only two spaces, 4 and 5, that are left open. So I could put the L here and I could put the O here, but those of you who are ahead of me will be saying, well, that doesn't work because where's the N going to go? And remember, the N has to come after the LO block, but these spaces, which were the only spaces that come after the LO block, are actually used up. So there's no way for us to do this, this top possibility. So go ahead and say that that's not possible. Oops. That's not possible. All right, so we're looking at the bottom template, and this is the only scenario, this bottom template right here is the only scenario that really works, assuming that we're trying to keep H and S as far apart as possible. So that means that the first guy is going to have to be H or S, the second slot is going to have to be G or P, and the third slot, it looks like from our answer, is always going to have to be L. So any answer without L third is going to be wrong, and any answer without H or S first is going to be wrong, and any answer without G or P second is going to be wrong. So let's look at the answers. A has G first, that can't be right. B has S first, that's okay. Then it has G second, that's okay. And then it has it has the news third. But we know that's wrong because L is supposed to be third, okay? In fact, if you wanted to be strategic about how you're considering the answers, you could go right to the answer that has L third, right? So in other words, the only ones you really had to consider if you were strategic from the very beginning of this question were A and C. And we already noted why A is wrong, because they have G first, and that's not acceptable. So we know that C is the answer, okay? And if you look at D and E, they're wrong because D has L second, and that can't be. Second has to be G or P, and E has L first, so that can't work. And again, but I would encourage you to be strategic in how you consider answers. And if you know for sure that in any solution where H and S is as far apart as possible, that L has to be third, then you should only consider answers where L is third. And then find, in this case, you would have narrowed it down to 2, and then find something wrong with one of them, and then the other one is your answer. All right, so that was not too bad. Let's do number 4. Let's take this off of the board. Okay. So number 4 says if P is played 5th, then L must be played. So they want us to put P 5th, and then they want us to figure out what we know about where L is going to be played. Okay, and they're actually asking us to pick first, second, third, fourth, or sixth. So they're implying, they're making it clear that we will know the exact placement of L. But let's just focus on the P for a second. So if the P is here, then how can we satisfy this rule about the GP block? Well, the P, we run out of room on this side, right? We're supposed to leave 2 spaces and then put the G down. So the G can't be after the P, it has to be before it. So we're like 1, 2, before, and then put the G there. All right. And now let's consider, and this is the pattern we've been using throughout this game, let's consider the LO block. All right. So the LO block could go in 3 and 4, and that would seem to be fine because we could still put the N afterwards somewhere here. Or the LO block could go in 6 and 7, but as we've already discovered in a previous question, the LO block in fact cannot go in 6 and 7. In fact, we discovered that immediately before we even started the questions when we were looking at the setup. We know that the LO cannot go here because the N has to go afterwards. So where's the L going to be? If the P is in 5th, well, the L is going to be in 3 and the O is going to be in 4. So the answer for this question is that L is going to be 3rd. The answer is C. All right. I'm actually going to stop it here because there's a time limit on YouTube, and I would not be able to get the rest of the questions done in the time limit, I don't think. So I'll do the remaining questions on the next video.